anti-Semitic protests. That's why I've set up a program to deal with that. I also condemn those who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinians and how they're being.
Should the Columbia University president resign?
Right this way.
I didn't know that. I'll have to.
And there are people right now calling this right here Joe Biden's Charlottesville moment. But then again, though, given the next thing I'm about to show you, it really shouldn't surprise you.
So it's not, you'll always have individuals who will have extreme views. But what's really troubling in the region is that there's actually quite a broad base of society which has some sympathy for the terrorists. Not so much because they approve of their methods, but it's a form of protesting against a system which is not delivering for them on the economic.
Go ahead and say this right now. If you are on the side of those who are okay with saying that babies are settlers, if you are okay with the side that is, let's just say, very, very much on the Free Palestine side, as far as not in the way that would bring about peace, but of course, as I've said before on several occasions, these people need to be seeking a treaty rather than a ceasefire, because ceasefire is absolutely dumb. It's just another excuse for somebody to start a fight weeks later. Chances are you fall in league with this very, very idiotic person that I just now showed you. Just saying. That right there was literally right after September the 11th, 2001. By the way, that same person will come back up over the course of this video because she's in one of the news clips. Apparently, she still works at one of the very, very large universities, obviously pushing this type of rhetoric here. And of course, I'm also showing you this event involving a guy who was a professor at Columbia University whose card was actually deactivated by the actual school itself. And he obviously can't get in to get to work. So obviously these protests are definitely a problem. But make sure you guys stick around for the full video because obviously we're going to be talking about what's probably going to happen as a result of all these protests, at least more so from the political aspect. But of course, there's also going to be a much, much larger video that comes out a little bit later on next week. This is going to be discussing the actual overall implications of what happens in the long term as far as America is concerned, but I'll definitely be bringing that up a little bit later on. I got to kind of edit this stuff right here in a little bit late with the additional information that's come out. So this current COO that you guys are seeing some photos of, the guy that's bald, they're calling on him to resign right now. He's the president of Columbia University, and obviously for good reason. And of course, you've also got multi-billionaires who are pulling their funds from these universities. But like I said, once again, we'll get to that here shortly, especially when we talk about these protests, because people are obviously wondering if this right here is Chaz Chop 2.0, but we'll get to that here in a second. This right here was obviously the scene at NYU and Columbia University in New York. And normally when I do these types of videos, it's normally talking about the migrant crisis. But here we are once again talking about protests. But I mean, at least these people aren't protesting in front of well, no, actually they technically are because they're actually out there in the street. I want to point something else out too that nobody else is pointing out. And this right here is what it is. Biden wants to, this October, forgive all these kids in student loan debt. This right here is your tax dollars right now at this moment in time covering these scumbags. And of course, the people who are out there on the right who are claiming that they're okay with the Free Palestine stuff, you're actually helping out and you're aiding with this right here. You're not on our side. Look yourself in the eye, look yourself in the mirror, and just go ahead and go find Jesus or whatever because you're not really on our side. You're on the side of the terrorists. Just go ahead and say it right now. That right there is who the hell you are. You are on the side of the people who chant death to America. That right there is who the hell you are. This right here is your tax dollars, America. Your tax dollars are about to go to forgive these lazy scumbags' debts. These scumbags, by the way, who have no prospects post-college to even get a job. Just throwing that out there. Once again, protesters making people's lives live in hell. Now, guys, you're probably wondering why it is that I have not released a video on this earlier and why it is that I'm just now releasing this video on Wednesday. Well, here's the reason why. It goes to a bigger topic that's going to be coming out on Sunday. This right here is most of the reaction to what's going on, explaining what's probably going to happen as a result of this. And also to go on top of this, the one that's going to be coming out on Sunday is going to be asking the question, will America remain pro-Israel? We'll get to that on Sunday. It'll be a much, much larger video, and it'll also have a lot of receipts from who exactly is funding said protest. But before we get started, I need you guys to know something really quick. YouTube strikes again. I got a YouTube terms of service. Well, I wouldn't call it a terms of service violation, but they chose to remove a video. And of course, the video they chose to remove was the video on what happened Friday in New York City, which was this guy, Max Azzarello, who decided to self-immolate. Now, it's funny, too, because YouTube chose to remove the content because I had the news footage of what happened. But, of course, it was also the footage of the CNN commentator basically commentating what was going on like a boxing match. Small flame, this, that, and the other. Not a whole lot more, but yet YouTube chose to remove it. Weird. Very, very odd. But then again, at the same time, though, you should probably get used to that if you're going to be here on YouTube. I'll talk more about it probably in future videos. And obviously, the videos this week, I've got a lot of them coming out, which, of course, I'm working on today. But things have not gone the way I wanted it to go. So bear with me really quick while I actually comment on this one. So what's actually going on? Well, I'm showing you guys in the B-roll footage. And if I was to go through every single incident that's occurred so far, this video would last over 2 hours long. And, of course, it would just lead to more and more and more minutia. The vast majority of you guys who watch my content or subscribe to my content already know where I lie on this. I'm definitely much more on the pro-Israel side. I'm a Christian, but at the same time, though, I do want the war in Gaza to end. However, I also understand that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I've also said that the best way you can take care of this issue is if you just simply put a carrier group out there in the middle of the Mediterranean Ocean and third parties won't get involved. But, of course, we have an extremely weak and inept president, and that's why we're in this situation. Now, one of the things that's been mentioned is America's eventual future when it comes to the topic of the nation of Israel. Well, you got guys out there who wear beanies and report their content, say that they believe it's a generational issue and that America probably won't remain pro-Israel, but I'll talk more about that in the Sunday video. But I am going to go ahead and kind of allude to that now by saying that it typically tends to be, where is the money? Now, this little protest here actually started on Friday, or at least it got started on Friday. But before we get to how this entire thing started, there's one thing I need to address. Why is it all of a sudden that I now suddenly sympathize with this guy?
That lady. You kill that lady and got no jail time? No jail time, Alec? No jail time, Alec. You're putting innocent people in jail, Alec Baldwin.
I'm so sorry.
Free Palestine, Alec, just one time. And I'll leave you alone. I'll leave you alone. I swear. Just say free Palestine one time. One time. One time.
Call the police.
One time, Alec. You know he's a criminal. You know he's a fucking criminal. Come on, Alec. Just say free Palestine one time. One time. Just one time. Please. And I'll leave you alone. Free Palestine. Fuck Israel. Fuck Zionism. Please say it. One time.
Of course, I can't show you the last second and a half where he actually really punched said girl in the face. But, of course, Alec Baldwin is nobody's favorite person. And, of course, him punching somebody over something like this right here should not surprise anybody. But, once again, though, he can obviously feel what it is that most people feel. We've talked about people who protest in the road. We've talked about people who block people. There's one incident here where there's actually a professor at Columbia University who was trying to get to his classroom who got blocked because he was wearing a Star of David. He obviously was told he couldn't go in. You've got the mob out there chanting all kinds of crazy stuff. We'll get to that more on Sunday. And, of course, you've also got Jewish students going on Fox News saying that they're not allowed to participate in finals. And you've also got people out there who are calling people who are okay with funding the war in Israel but not okay with funding the war in Ukraine to be cowards. I find these people to be absolutely laughable in every sense of the word because, in reality, the vast majority of the people who say that type of crap are just not relevant people at all. Just saying. And I understand that you may get upset if I say that, but quite frankly, at this point in time, I really and truly don't care. You see, what you don't seem to understand is that a lot of these people out here, and I understand I could lose people over what I just said. It's okay. What you don't seem to understand is that these people who are siding with the Palestinian protesters, you're siding with the people who are actually funding it. A lot of people who are funding these people are Poros-backed, number one. And number two, not only are they Poros-backed, but they're also, to go on top of that, they're also from the Middle East, and they want to see the United States die, not just Israel. These are the same people who chant death to America. I just figured I'd go ahead and get that out of the way, that you calling people who are, and they claim to be America first. I don't think they're America first at all. I think they're just people who are just riding the grift. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The vast majority of them, by the way, don't even have any internet credentials anymore. They got banned for whatever reason. They'll sit there and come out here and scream, well, I'm not anti-Semitic, but I said Christ is king, which, by the way, I do think Christ is king, obviously. But they'll say that I'm not anti-Semitic, but then you go through their social media history and everything you have is critical of a certain nation in the Middle East. I understand the reasons why, but still at the same time, though, there are different classifications here. There's Zionists, there's Messianic Jews, and, of course, there are those who are just Israelis. There's also secular Jews. The point of the matter is this right here. It always comes down to who the hell threw the first rock. I've discussed this on several occasions in several videos. But still, something else to consider is that Israel is the nation that, quite frankly, has got to deal with Hamas, Hezbollah, and other terrorists all the daggone time. There's a reason why it is everybody in that country carries a rifle. There's a reason why it is everybody in that country serves in the military. They're always under constant threat. Now, if you want to talk about the U.S. involvement about that, we can debate that. That's no big deal, but we've been supporting Israel since 1947. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't know this, but during 1947, these people don't want to actually, they don't want to actually mention this, but believe it or not, Joseph Stalin was actually supporting Israel. Yeah, he was. He was actually sending weapons to Israel in 1946 and 1947, and of course, after, I think it was Vyacheslav Molotov's wife, Polina, she got very, very close with Golda Meir, and her being Jewish, eventually Stalin started screaming what Adolf Hitler screamed, that it was a Jewish conspiracy, and then eventually he pulled the plug on her. But of course, she didn't get out of the gulag until after Stalin died. Very interesting conversation, very interesting topic. Figure I would get that out of the way before we go any further. All you pro-Stalinist types out there, he was once pro-Israel too. Just remember that, okay? So, how did this entire thing start, and when did this entire thing start? Well, it actually started on Friday. Here's the first.
More than 100 protesters at the Ivy League school were cuffed and carried away by New York police following a second day of demonstrations on campus. The heavy police presence and action came one day after the school's president faced some tough questions on Capitol Hill about the rise of anti-Semitism on campus. CBS's Lilia Luciano reports on the arrests.
For what reason? I'm just standing on the sidewalk.
Police in riot gear detained protesters at Columbia University, loading them into multiple buses as they cleared out students who had camped out in tents on the school's south lawn. The mass protests over the war in Gaza began Wednesday.
Columbia has shown over and over again that they don't care about student rights, they don't care about student voices, they don't care about student safety.
School administrators today asked NYPD to clear the tents and suspended several students who participated, including the daughter of Representative Ilhan Omar, according to a tweet on X. Columbia has been a hotspot of protests since the October 7th.
Omar's daughter, who got arrested, she's, of course, out there crying victim and all that stuff, too, like most lefties do. Which, by the way, I think the crowd that I was just talking about, they don't seem to realize that they're actually siding with these crazies. But, of course, mental illness, right? I think what it is really is that people are just taking advantage of the system. They're taking advantage of the fact that the laws have been lax and they can just get away with whatever. But still, we got to move forward.
7th attacks, with pro-Palestinian students denouncing the killing of more than 34,000 people in Gaza, most women and children, and what USAID recently called an imminent famine. The school also saw a spike in reports of anti-Semitic rhetoric.
I'm scared to wear a Jewish star here. I've gotten very nasty anti-Semitic comments at me, and I just don't understand how this is accepted.
The unrest comes after the Ivy League University's president was grilled on Capitol Hill yesterday over the school's response to anti-Semitism.
Anti-Semitism has no place on our campus, and I am personally committed to doing everything I can to confront it directly.
Tonight, tensions still hold over the campus.
New Yorkers have every right to express their sorrow, but that heartbreak does not give you the right to harass others, to spread hate.
This protest continues here, as you can hear all around me. At one point, it turned from the chants and the demonstration into a march down the street. They return here to Columbia, and it's expected to continue through the night. Nora?
You see that there, and then, of course, you see what the hell is going on in New York. Now, you're probably asking yourself a question. So how long is this going to last? Will this turn into a Chaz chop situation like it was in Seattle? Well, let me just go ahead and say this before we go any further. In the Seattle situation with Chaz chop, people forget that the city of Portland, Oregon was already burning. Antifa riots were going on every single day. With BLM, which, by the way, we'll talk a lot about that on Sunday, too, because people are trying to correlate this right here with Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd riots. I don't think it's the same thing. The reason why is because at that time in 2020, they were actively doing what they were doing in the hopes that it would hurt former President Trump, which, by the way, this will come up a little later on in the video because we got to talk politics soon. The thing about that particular case was they were actively going out of their way to get rid of former President Trump. Now, the guy who wears the beanie, Tim Pool, I like to reference from time to time. I'll use his clips from time to time because sometimes he gets it right. Actually, a lot of times he's actually close to it. He just isn't exactly there. He talked about this in 2020. He was saying that the riots will actually help the incumbent president. Bullshit. That's not what happens. Riots and protests never help the incumbent president. the thinking is that it helps Republicans out because they're more law and order. But if you're in office, it's not going to help you out with riots and protests. The truth be told is the riots and protests help the non-incumbent party. If you want proof of this, let's go back to 1968. An election I'm going to be bringing up here momentarily, especially with the Democratic National Convention being in Chicago this year. And not to mention the fact that you have a Kennedy on the ballot running third party. But still, the point is this right here. In times when you have riots like this, it helps the non-incumbent party. In 2016, you had riots. You had BLM riots. You had all kinds of crap happening over the course of Obama's second term, which in a lot of ways, this right here reminds me a lot of, but still at the same time, it's also a lot worse in a lot of ways. Obviously, it is with the inflation. And of course, the overall foreign policy itself is absolutely terrible. Barack Hussein Obama, biggest mistake in American history. Joe Biden's becoming an even bigger mistake. It's a much, much larger mistake in the history of this nation. But the point is this right here. The thing that you got to understand about riots and protests is that they typically tend to hurt the incumbent in office because it makes the incumbent look extremely dysfunctional, which of course this White House looks more than dysfunctional. It looks very, very weak and very, very inept. Then you get the question of identity politics voters and white liberals and moderates. Now, we'll bring that up a little bit later on. But let's get back to what's actually happening in New York and what's happened over the past couple of days in New York City.
Team members at NYU and some students led away in handcuffs last night.
It's one of several pro-Palestinian protests happening at college campuses throughout the city that has ended with the police getting involved. Good Day's Briella Tomasetti is live in Greenwich Village right now with the latest. Briella.
Yeah, Kurt and Rosanna, good morning to both of you. For background, when things really started to heat up here yesterday afternoon, the university asked all student protesters to disperse by 4 o'clock. They did not comply with those orders, and as a result, police were brought in to de-escalate the situation, to intervene, to take down the tents, and to clear out all of the demonstrators. They are still on site here barricading the plaza this morning. They have been here all night, and now it appears that workers are putting up a plywood wall to block this area as a result of those demonstrations.
You guys are going to need to bear with me for the next few minutes because now it's about to get wonky. Look, I'm going to try to hit all of this at one time. I played roughly about 53 seconds there. I'm going to play the rest of the news report, and I'm going to go ahead and try to answer it all on the other side because the more and more you look at this situation, the more and more it makes you wonder how long it's going to drag out for. Here we go.
Tensions reached a boiling point at NYU last night where pro-Palestinian demonstrators clashed with police clad in riot gear.
New York University to leave the area.
NYPD officers moved in to break up the demonstration after protesters breached safety barriers set up at Gould Plaza. Police warned protesters to disperse or risk being charged with trespassing, but many of them would not comply. Skyfox flew overhead as some demonstrators formed a human chain outside the Stern Business School. The melee resulted in dozens of arrests, with the head of campus safety writing in a statement, "We witnessed disorderly, disruptive, and antagonizing behavior that has interfered with the safety and security of our community." Protests started early in the morning when students announced they would be setting up a solidarity encampment with Columbia University and other schools across the nation in response to Israel's ongoing war in Gaza. At least 40 people were arrested at Yale University following days of tense protests. Many demonstrations, though, were largely peaceful, with pro-Palestinian organizers calling for an immediate ceasefire and demanding their schools divest from companies that sell weapons to Israel.
And here I am standing with the Palestinian people against the genocide that they're facing right now, being done in my name as a Jewish person that I do not.
Counter demonstrations at Columbia, where some Jewish students have expressed safety concerns. Campus officials have extended hybrid classes through the end of the semester to try and quell the turmoil.
The university and all universities have an obligation to maintain the safety and security of their students from all backgrounds and all different types of ethnicities or religions.
You guys are obviously seeing that barricades are being built up, and of course there's a lot more to this news story to report. And of course, like I said, this video is coming out on Wednesday. I'm making this video on Tuesday. But I want to go ahead and throw this out here. There are currently protests going on, not just at NYU. They're happening at Columbia University. Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, he's pulled his money from there. Of course, that's going to be a factor this year as well because we got to talk about money. And, of course, there's also protests going on at Yale University, which doesn't surprise me. And, of course, we've also got a lot of evidence that suggests that the funding for what's going on right now is coming from a Middle Eastern nation called Qatar. one of those same nations that hates the country of Israel, that's very anti-Israel, that chants death to America every day. Just figured I'd point that out. By the way, we buy oil from them too. I think if we stopped buying oil from them, that right there would really help in a lot of ways. But still, that's another topic for another day. The point is this right here. The protests are going all over the place. People think that these protests will probably last for the next week or so. I'm here to tell you right now, they'll probably shut down over the course of the next week, but they'll probably pop back up again. What I'm saying is this right here. Don't be surprised if like a week from now, these protests don't just suddenly stop, because finals are about to happen. But of course, the pro-Palestine people, unlike what happened in 2020 with Chaz, they're playing under a different set of rules. You see, what I didn't mention earlier, I'm going to go ahead and mention now about the Chaz. I said earlier that those riots and whatnot were specifically designed to hurt President Trump. These riots right here are mostly, or these protests are mostly out of anger for the current administration. They're out of anger for the fact that Biden is trying to straddle both sides like a two-timing whore. That's basically what he's doing. The point is this right here, though. These riots right here are being funded by somebody else, and it's probably being funded by somebody else to try to get the president to lean into the more pro-Palestinian side, so that way he'll stay in office. Biden is an extremely weak leader, very, very weak leader. So what would you prefer if you're someone on the left? Would you prefer an extremely weak, feeble old man, or would you prefer what you believe to be a Cheeto-head dictator? Well, you probably would prefer this the person who's a very, very weak, feeble leader. However, there is a certain section of the pro-Palestine crowd that, quite frankly, is not okay with both sides, and they're more than content to put Trump back in office, even though he's definitely more pro-Israel. At least there's going to be somewhat of a peaceful solution. It'll probably stop sometime after he gets in office, because knowing Trump, he'll probably fire a few big-ass bombs, and next thing you know, the crowd will shut up, which really, by the way, is how you handle the Middle East. When they start acting up, drop a bomb on them. They typically tend to be quiet after that. Still, though, these protesters, obviously, I guess they're just screaming for attention. And, of course, it's obviously gotten completely out of control. You guys see the B-roll footage that Omar's daughter, by the way, would actually go on to then play victim afterwards. I would like to say it's a mental illness, but at the same time, the more and more I look at it, I think that at some point in time, you got to realize that, and don't worry, this is a video coming out in the future. You got to ask yourself a question if these people just aren't gaining the system. Seeing how it is that the playing field has been set so low for these people to basically do whatever the hell it is that they want. They've never been spanked. They've never been punished. So, of course, we should not be surprised this type of activity occurs. It makes you wonder what the hell is going to happen when these people are actually put in their place, meaning that they actually get punished. It almost makes me think about the movie A Clockwork Orange, where it is that Alex ultimately did, in fact, basically get the comeuppance. He went to prison, and then he got the program that basically changed his thinking. But then again, at the very end of the film, you probably think to yourself he probably did, even though the film and the book have got different endings. The point is this right here. These people are taking advantage of the system, the protests that these people are doing. How long do these protests last? Well, you obviously saw what I just showed you there. And I got to point this out, too. I didn't say it earlier, but you got this one girl who's getting on a bus with a mask on that's rainbow colored, and then you've got these people protesting. There's a pride flag in the background. It's almost like screaming chickens for Chick-fil-A. These people know what the hell they do to people who live that lifestyle or of that community in the Middle East. I don't think I need to say it. Once again, though, like I said, I had a video get removed for terms of service, but still at the same time, though, it kind of goes back to the people that I mentioned earlier who were, I think I have the real reason why it is that I think I know why it is the people who are calling us pro-Israel people cowards, but yet we're anti the war, we're anti-funding the war in Ukraine. I think I know the real reason why it is the way they are, but we'll talk more about that in the video on Sunday, because that requires a special explanation. I think I just figured out while I was in this video. The point is this right here. People are wondering exactly how long this protest will last. Like I said before, they'll probably pop back up again over the course of the summer. It's probably going to be a summertime thing. Now, before I go any further, I want to leave this video right here from Real American Politics in the description box. He does a very, very good job of breaking down exactly what's going to be happening at the DNC this year. And, of course, the pro-Palestine crowd, it's going to be a very, very big issue come that election cycle. A lot of this right here reminds me of 1968 and the riots, which, by the way, I don't think I fully addressed. Like I said before, the riots typically tend to help the non-incumbent, not the actual incumbent party. It happened under their watch. They're not going to vote for it. I didn't go into full detail, but back in 1968, riots were occurring. Race riots throughout 1968, and the convention itself of the 1968 DNC. A few far-left radicals, of course, made that entire situation happen, whether underground. Of course, somebody's going to say they're not connected, but of course, if you pay attention to actually what the hell was going on, you'll see that they were, in a lot of ways. The point is this right here. Those who are actually currently in power with this type of stuff happening under their watch, they're typically not the ones who are voted back in by the people who are actually on the ground, the actual voters themselves. it typically tends to favor the person. And by the way, while you've got said person who could put a stop to this, or who would try to put a stop to this, while you've got them right now inside of a courtroom facing bogus charges, and he comes out every day and basically explains to you what the hell's going on, that's not a good look for your administration either. And of course, to go on top of this, the Democratic Party's got a hard time trying to replace Joe Biden. If they were going to replace him, they would have done it after the FBI report dropped. So it makes you almost wonder what happens next. Yeah, I think that Greg Foreman, Black Conservative Perspective, when he says that this right here is going to be the issue that destroys the Democratic Party, I think is 100% correct, because you see these people have leaned into identity politics too much, to the point to where even the Dershowitz types have decided to leave the party, which also makes me wonder, and yeah, it took me a while to put my elbow up there, so if you guys want to laugh, you guys can. It also makes me wonder exactly what's going to leave the current administration. Well, I said earlier that they weren't going to be able to replace him. It's a little bit too late in the game. The DNC's already decided. And if you do choose to replace Biden, even the people who voted for Biden are going to be like, whoa, we don't get a say in this. You're going to have more and more people say, screw you, and not vote. You had 2020. You had COVID on your side. You had the lockdowns on your side, which, by the way, these people remain locked down in these blue states. Even after Biden got in office, it looks like the current administration just has no more credibility. And, of course, like I said earlier, they're trying to straddle and play both sides like a two-timing whore. That right there is the real truth of the situation. That there's what the hell they really truly end up looking like. And don't be surprised if somebody doesn't start using that phrase in the future. Now, really quick, I want to say something really quick before I go any further. And, of course, on the other side is where I'm going to go ahead and just kind of give you guys my final thoughts and put it into this video. The thing is this right here. These protests aren't just going on at New York University. They're not just going on at Columbia. There's an organized protest in Philadelphia. You've got the DNC this year where there's going to be protests in Chicago. And I'm also pretty sure that you're going to see the Black Israelite faction get into a fight with these people here, because obviously these groups, all these identity politics groups, they all at the end of the day end up working against one another, because each one of them have their own little interests that oftentimes compete with the other. It's what the Democratic Party wanted to lean into, was just one base of support. But, of course, the base of support they're leaning into, for the most part, is shrinking, for the exception of Hispanics, which, as I've explained in previous videos, they're starting to turn to the right. And even the ones that Biden is bringing over, while they may vote for Biden their first election, or may vote Democrat their first election, they're not going to vote for the far left radical on a continuous basis. So one-party rule is something that probably won't happen for the Democratic Party. I explained that in a previous video. But I did mention earlier that there's another university, Yale University, that has a protest going on. Now, I'm going to play this clip right here for you guys, only about maybe 2 minutes or so, but it's the very, very end that I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to, even though obviously the story itself is definitely newsworthy, because it does, in fact, involve an assault at one of these pro-Palestine rallies on a Jewish
through what
student.
she says happened to her. In part, it reads, they pointed the middle finger at me and yelled Free Palestine, and the taunting continued until a 6-foot-something male protester holding a Palestinian flag waved the flag in my face and then stabbed it in my left eye. Tartak goes on to say that the man was wearing a mask. She says she attempted to chase after him, but there was a wall of students who blocked her. The students did file a report with campus police. She claims that Yale police had only had 7 officers present to handle the crowd of hundreds. This morning, I'm working to confirm that with Yale police. In her published essay, Tartak says an EMT advised her to go to the hospital following the alleged attack. She says she is okay, but fears for the violence that is taking place during demonstrations. In a statement from Yale, they say protests began on Friday. Yale students built an encampment with 24 tents, and the university says 400 people gathered within Beinecke Plaza. Now, the protest organizers are calling Occupy Beinecke's Books Not Bombs is to advocate for Yale's divestment from military weapon manufacturers. Some Yale students pledged to continue to occupy this area until the university cuts ties from military companies. Now, the university says that over the weekend, no students were arrested, but 1 student was detained. Now, this morning, we're working to find out if any students are going to face disciplinary action for still being out here.
Becomes accountability. What's going to happen? Now, I mentioned earlier there's a lot of evidence that Qatar is sending a lot of money to these universities, and of course these places are all pour us back, and they're all leftist indoctrination camps. Well, let me go ahead and say this right quick. You're probably going to see a massive influx of people, especially people who want their kids to get higher learning, not to send their kids to these institutions in the future. For example, instead of going to Columbia University, they'll send their kids to Duke University, which is not exactly... Well, Duke University, and by the way, I'm a Duke University basketball fan. Of course, my primary, I'm not going to go too far, but still at the same time, a place like Duke, for example, is about as Ivy League as you can get without actually being Ivy League. Tulane University, the exact same thing. you're probably going to see a lot more of those universities get a lot more play, and they're also better priced, a little bit cheaper, even though they're still obviously expensive as hell. But they're definitely cheaper for the rich man. The point is this right here. You're probably going to see a lot less American financial interest in these institutions. And I've also pointed this right here as well, because the 2024 election is obviously happening. The person who's more pro-Israel, or the person who at least takes a side, is probably going to be the one who wins. That hence the fact why Robert Kraft, who, by the way, is a friend to former President Trump, personal friend from what I say, even though they've had a bit of a falling out, he's probably going to give his money this election cycle to Trump. He's about to get a massive influx of money because he's obviously the main candidate. Or someone like RFK may get some money, which, by the way, is just going to split the Democratic Party further. The current regime more than likely will not stay in place. By the way, that would be wild as hell if these billionaires suddenly gave their money to RF Kennedy Jr. That right there would be absolutely hilarious. Like I said, the guy's got no chance of winning, and more than likely he'll just split the Democratic Party vote. Hence, one of the reasons why it is that Biden may have came out the other day with Kennedy's to kind of condemn RFK. That would be very, very interesting to see. So stay tuned for that one. And why is this right here the case? Well, here's the thing. I mentioned earlier the identity politics crowd. If you lean into the identity politics crowd, if you lean into them and you suddenly take the position of extremely pro-Palestine, you get guys like, say, Michael Rappaport, who recently has basically came out saying he hopes Trump wins now. You get people who are on the Jewish side who've been voting Democrat their entire life. A lot of these people just decide to either A, not vote, support a third-party candidate, or vote for Trump, splitting your base a little bit further, giving the orange guy, Trump, giving him a win. I call him orange guy affectionately. Obviously, I'm a voter is. Then, of course, if you don't go in the direction of pro-Palestine, but if you go in the direction of pro-Israel, you lose these people because they end up staying home. Or you get the white liberals who will still vote for Biden anyways, because better to have a weak, feeble old man to run over than a Cheeto dictator who may try to put them in prison, which I don't think he will right away. But if you do nothing, you lose both. You lose both factions, and you lose in a massive landslide. That's really what I think is going to happen. But there is one more caveat that needs to be said. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this one now because, quite frankly, I didn't want to put it in the big video, but I want to go ahead and say it now. The massive deportation operation that former President Trump wants is probably not going to be as massive as you think. Now, guys, I'm a Trump voter, and obviously I know these people who've been getting brought over with the migrant crisis are obviously got to go. However, I don't lie to you guys. I'd be very, very real with you. I give you my honest thoughts. I do that because I'm a content creator. I got a platform. I got to give you the truth. The reason why I'm bringing this up is this here. He wins. He gets a little bit of border security, whatever done. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to get rid of all these people. I said before in several videos that if there was ever a civil war in this country, it would be blue on blue, meaning blue voters, meaning Democrat voters, identity politics crowd. You have white liberals, very, very white pro-alphabet community liberals, alphabet community, lumped in with pro-Palestine empathizers, supporters, people coming across the borders, including Sunni Muslims, and, of course, to go on top of this, Hispanics and blacks. When their competing interests obviously begin to compete, which they already are, what do you think happens? Just going to leave that there for you. Make sure you guys please leave a comment in the comment section. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. There was one thing I did want to address, which was a bit of an update on this week. Like I said, we're going to be coming back to this topic on Saturday or Sunday in a much, much bigger video. And we're also at the same time going to be following up tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, on a story that I did a couple of weeks ago about squatters in New York. And also to go on top of that, there's also going to be this response to Tucker Carlson's extremely bad take on America bombing Japan. So make sure you guys stick around. We got a lot of takes to go through this week. And I am going to be following up with the Driscoll situation and Lindell situation. It'll be the last video I do on it. So make sure you guys stick around. It's going to be a busy week. A lot of big-time content coming out. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign up in the comment section. I'll see you guys later.